Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you very warmly to this webinar. We'll just give it another minute for all the participants to join into the meeting, and then we'll kick it off. Okay, I think it's time to start. Once again, welcome everybody to this webinar on what it takes to produce and deliver certified sustainable biomass. My name is Christian Rakos. I'm chairman of the World Bioenergy Association, and this webinar is a webinar in a series of webinars that touches different topics related to bioenergy use. So why are we highlighting this time the topic of sustainability? First of all, obviously, if bioenergy is not produced in a sustainable way, it's not a renewable energy form. So this is something that all of us need to have in mind always if we talk about bioenergy. Needs to be done in a sustainable way. Fine. So we try to do that as good as we can, but we should also be able to prove that. And in order to prove that, just saying, well, I'm doing it sustainably, it's not enough proof. You need a third party to do that, to look at what you're doing and to really make sure that you're doing it right. And the way how this happens is by certification. I'm very glad that we are partnering today with the most important certification scheme for solid biomass, which is the Sustainable Biomass Program, SBP. And I would like to welcome very warmly a lineup of speakers that will explain to you, first of all, what's the setup, how does the certification scheme work, how is it executed by the certification body, and also what does it mean for the industry to produce a certified sustainable biomass. So for the producer, for the trader, and for the user. Now you may ask, why do we really need that? And the answer is, well, there are legal requirements to prove that biomass is being produced sustainably. In particular, in Europe, the European Directive for Renewable Energy, the RED III, has been or is going to require all major users of biomass to certify that it is being produced sustainably. And that means with major, used to mean all plants with a capacity of more than 20 megawatt that has been reduced now to 7.5 megawatts. So all users with an installed heating capacity of more than 7.5 megawatt are required to prove that their biomass is being produced in a sustainable way, and they need a certification. That's the fundamental reason why we have a very large already market of certified sustainable biomass. And if you are interested to deliver biomass to the European market, you will most likely be required to prove that is being produced sustainably as long as you deliver to larger customers. So that's the reason why we have this topic today. And I'm very glad to start with Carsten Julius. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the SBP certification scheme. He has been managing this scheme since May 2016, so for almost 9 years now. He has a wealth of experience and a detailed understanding of forest management and chain of custody certification. So, Carsten, the floor is yours. Please explain to us, what is SBP about?
Thank you, Christian. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon. I'll just share my screen with you to get us started. Alejandra, can you confirm?
Yes, all good.
Perfect. Excellent. So again, a warm welcome from me. My name is Carsten Julius, Chief Executive Officer of the SBP. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'll try to do some magic in the next 10 minutes to introduce something very difficult to you, which is a voluntary certification scheme dealing with woody biomass. And we'll jump in, and I'm happy to have all sorts of other people around, certification bodies and companies that are also SBP certified. So buckle up, let us take you on a little trip through the world of SBP and voluntary certification in the biomass sector. Now, it all started probably more than 100 years ago with mandatory certification. And that kind of leads back to all these things that we actually really need and want to work. It's about health and safety, seatbelts, planes that need to stay in the air, food that shouldn't poison us, and medication that should actually do its job. And there's this organization called ISO. You may have heard, the International Organization of Standardization, and they have established more than 3,000 standards that are applied worldwide. We don't know a lot about this because this is happening in the background, but about 30 years ago, there was a demand created for what we call the non-mandatory claims. So things like customer satisfaction, organic, fair traded, sustainable sourced materials, and so on. And in the past 30 years up to now, we see a development of more than 300 voluntary certification schemes and different standards for various supply chains. And for me, I love chocolate. There are 91 standards addressing cocoa and chocolate, 82 standards addressing coffee, bananas, and whatever. But also other interesting commodities like water certification, steel, jewelry, fish, tourism, golf courses for sustainability, for example, and last but not least, also forest products. Now, the latest change, or the latest development in regard to the voluntary certification schemes, is that voluntary certification schemes have been identified by regulators, by governments, as a source, as a tool for companies to comply with regulations. And that is where an organization like SBP kind of kicks in. SBP stands for the Sustainable Biomass Program. We were founded back in 2013, I think. We are a non-for-profit, independent, multi-people's voluntary certification scheme. Our purpose is to expand the contribution of good biomass to the global bioeconomy. We have developed and are maintaining what we call a sourcing standard, not a forest management standard, but a sourcing standard that ensures that feedstock is sourced from legal and sustainable sources. Our scheme has specifically been developed back in the days for woody biomass, with a specific focus on pellet wood chips, biocoal, biocarbon, biochar, and others. But we are currently working on a project of advancing our standards to also cover agri-feedstock. The intention of establishing a scheme like this and the standards is to create a global one-stop shop. That means we have incorporated all the existing regulation that exists for woody biomass globally and into our standards. And we are recognized as a scheme by the European Commission under the Renewable Energy Directive 3, by the UK regulators, by the Dutch regulators, by the Japanese regulators, and we have added additional SBP criteria to enable us to go beyond just regulatory compliance. In addition to that, and the backbone of every voluntary certification scheme is the assurance. We are a standard setter. We don't audit. We maintain the standards. We have outsourced the auditing to independent certification bodies, and they run their schemes and systems based on ISO 17011 and 17065 product certification. Apart from that, SBP as an organization, we're a member of the ISIL Alliance, which is an alliance of voluntary certification schemes that seek to strengthen sustainability standards via a set of code of best practices. And lots of more super interesting information on SBP on the website. And we also have a YouTube channel where you can see lots of interesting videos. As we speak, we have 362 certificate holders globally across 35 countries. We have 51 applicants in the pipeline waiting to be SBP certified, and there's more to come. And we have a facts and figures page on our website. You can see an interactive map. You can click on those colorful little dots and find out more information on who's certified, where and when, what kind of organizations these are. And also in regard to volumes in 2024, we've reconciled all the numbers, and we understand that around 19 million tons of SBP certified biomass has gone through our books, registered in our system. That is wood chips and wood pellets together. That accounts to about 30% of the global pellet production being SBP certified, and about 80% of the industrial pellet consumption in Europe being SBP certified. And we also do monthly updates also in regards to the volumes, to the SBP certified volumes. And you can find that on the SBP website in the facts and figures section as well. Now, very briefly, some dull explanation around the structure and function. Now, SBP, we are registered in the UK. We as a limited, and we run two sets of standards. On the left, you can see accreditation standards. On the right, you can see certification standards. So if you follow the arrow to the right, certification standards, the standards 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, they apply. Go down the arrow to certificate holders. Certificate holders are biomass producers, biomass traders, biomass end users. And if they are certified and comply with our standards, they are enabled to produce certified wood pellets and wood chips and sell these or produce these with a claim. Now, to enable them to do that, there is a watchdog function. This watchdog function, if you go from the certificate holder to the left, you'll find the certification body. So we have 4 of them in place, and they audit according to ISO 17011. And check if the certificate holder on an annual basis is in compliance with our standards. Now, the certification body needs to do its driver's license as well, and they are overseen by, go up the arrow on the left side, by the accreditation body, which is ANAB, a US-based national accreditation body. They operate under ISO 17011, and that all happens under the umbrella of the accreditation standards, which is at top left, which is a combination of the ISO 17065 and SBP standard number 3. So in a nutshell, hopefully not having to confuse you too much, but that's how the system works. So we have 6 standards across the supply chain: standard 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 for certificate holders, standard number 3 for certification bodies only. In a nutshell, how it works, as mentioned, 3 types of certificate holders: producers, traders, end users. There are probably hundreds of ways on how these guys can operate and trade. And it's all covered by the SBP system. Each step of the supply chain is certified if the material is produced and sold with an SBP claim. Now, the focus of the system is, as mentioned, a sourcing standard. So on the right side, you can see the biomass producer in the focus of the whole system, in the middle of the system, because they need to do the due diligence. So biomass producers need to undertake a supply-based evaluation of the feedstock that they source. They need to determine and mitigate the risks of using unsustainable feedstock. They have 2 options to do that. They can either use a company risk assessment or a regional risk assessment. If a regional risk assessment is in place, it supersedes the company risk assessment and replaces that over time. If there is no regional risk assessment, the only keys to success is to have their own company risk assessment. Once done, all SBP certified operations are subject to annual auditing by independent certification bodies, and certified material and volumes and energy data are then transferred through the data transfer system. Now, data transfer system is a very, very unique setup, and you don't see it very often within voluntary certification schemes. I think we are one of the leading schemes on this one. The DTS is a cloud-based and digital tool for the transfer of SBP claims, production, sustainability data along the supply chain. It's a bit like Facebook and LinkedIn, where producers and buyers connect, but not for sales purposes, but for the purposes of exchanging data. So all of our, 362 certificate holders have established more than 3,000 business relationships on the platform. It's mandatory to use. There is no trade of SBP certified material allowed outside of the data transfer system. Every transaction is tracked. This eliminates fraud in the supply chain, and our biomass end users can use that data for greenhouse gas calculations, internal, external reporting, regular reporting, and so on. Novelty is that we have established an EU DR module in addition to the DTS, which is currently being trialed. So if you are subject to EU DR, or if you are delivering into an EU DR supply chain, please take a look and trial and test. And another thing that is under development is a greenhouse gas emissions platform that will tap into the data, into the energy data from the DTS, and enable SBP certificate holders to do carbon calculation, carbon footprinting, moving forward. More information on our website. And moving to the last slide, SBP is a non-membership organization. Nevertheless, we love to engage with all sorts of people, organizations, stakeholders, and so on. And you can see just some examples of the organizations and people that we usually deal with. And there are different ways on how to engage with us. We have established regional forums in Asia, in Europe, and in America, or in North America, sorry. We have our Americas Forum in 2 weeks in Atlanta. We have a Europe Forum planned for September in Brussels, and the Asia Forum will probably happen in February or March in Q1 2026. Further means of engagement are quarterly bulletins, LinkedIn, YouTube, different working groups, or join our governance system, become of the SBP board, work together with me and my team. And with that, I'd like to close, and you can shoot a picture here, scan the QR code, and get the latest version of the SBP Annual Review 2024 with all of the latest data and what we have been up to so far. And with that, I'll hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Before we move over to the next speaker, I have to make an announcement I should have made in the beginning, and that is, please use the Q&A chat to ask questions that you have. A first question has already been entered into the Q&A, Carsten, and that is sustainability certification related to the provision of subsidies, for example, in the UK?
Yes and no. Subsidies in the UK are given to companies that apply for them, and they have to deliver and data to the regulators to enable them. And I'm very sure that the certified operations in the UK utilize SPP data in some or the other way, but the let's say the relationship between a certified end user or certified power station and their regulator is outside of the scope of SPP. So we are not involved in that kind of data transaction.
There was another question whether when you will start to track agricultural biomass.
That's the million-dollar question that we've been asked for the last 2 years, I think. But we have currently run a consultation on some of the ideas that we have, and I think they should still be online. And our plan is that by the end of the year, we would want to have a workable solution in place that we can then enroll in the first half of 2026. That is kind of a very rough timeline.
Fantastic. So far only woody biomass, but
Indeed.
by 2027 also agricultural biomass. There is also another, a bit more specific question, and that is about rubber wood. You're aware, I'm sure, of this issue. Rubber wood is actually wood, but it is being treated very often as agricultural biomass. is that now something that you can certify, particularly if it comes to residues from processing rubber wood?
I'm very sure we can do that. What we currently differ in the existing system is forest trees and trees outside of forests. And it kind of depends on where we would categorize these kind of plantations. In my opinion, they are lignocellulosic, so we're not talking about agricultural plants as such. And we are aware that there are many rubber plantations that have that end of life where they get logged and replanted, and there's a lot of material being left over. But it's not a situation only in the rubber wood plantation, but we also have that in managing different fruit orchards like apples and pears and cherries and other things and whatever. There's a lot of biomass coming from these as well. And we are looking into that, and in my opinion, have found solutions to address these kind of situations going forward as well.
Very well, thank you very much. The last question will be answered in the course of this webinar, and that is how is the end user involved in certification? We will have an end user here in the speakers panel that will explain what kind of involvement is required from him. So with this, we will move over to our next speaker. Robin Rosendahl is an experienced professional in sustainable supply chains, in certification in bioenergy and also in international water management. He helps businesses on their way to meeting compliance and sustainability goals, and he is currently account and program manager at Control Union, a certification body. He is overseeing the global bioenergy certification programs on behalf of Control Union. And Robin, you are going to explain to us what certification means from the point of view of a certification body. How does it work? What is your involvement? What is your role in this process? Floor is
Exactly, Christian. Thanks for the intro, and thanks for World Bioenergy Association and SVP for the invitation today to speak as on behalf of one of the 4 accredited certification bodies that they're out there currently for SPP. Carsten mentioned them in the slides previously. And I briefly wanted to introduce to you Control Union. What do we do? Where do we operate in? And afterwards, indeed, zooming into wider certification matter and what's important for SPP certification and the steps on how to become certified. I see a lot of familiar names in the participant list, which is great, but maybe indeed also some are new to certification. So hopefully you can pick something up here and there. Every year we have a slogan. This year it's called the proof to your promise, right? So the services to support a safer and better world throughout your company. Control Union is part of the Peterson and Control Union Group, a global operating group which was founded back in 1920. 5 years ago, we had the big 100-year party. Currently, we operate in over 80 countries worldwide with offices. Yeah, we're still family-owned, non-listed at the moment, and we have a long-term vision and not thinking annually in years, but thinking in generations is one of our mottos there. So globally operating, and then around 4,000 people throughout those 80 plus countries. What do we do? Yeah, you could call us the standard TIC company. So we're active in testing, inspection, and certifications. So operating also in many countries throughout those 3 fields, and also actually collateral management services, a rather new branch, but also doing that in many areas. But of course, today we want to look at certification in particular. And then within certification, we have a lot of pillars and topics that we're active in, mainly focusing indeed around sustainability and services over there. And biomass and biofuels is one of them, where SPP belongs to in this specific case. And indeed, Carsten mentioned, of course, the 80 plus certification programs alone for cocoa. So if you have a need, or if you own a cocoa plantation or anything else, and if you ever need for additional certification programs, feel free to check out our website. Indeed, a couple of 100 different programs that we operate and service over there. And indeed, for SPP, we are accredited by ANAP. Carsten mentioned it before, the accreditation body overseeing the SPP program, as one of the 4 mentioned earlier accreditation bodies operating worldwide. Right. Why does certification actually matter from our standpoint, right? First of all, of course, it gives you assurance. Certification provides you assurance to the regulators, right, to energy producers, and also, of course, very important under the woody biomass topic, also to the public, at least in some degree for that. And next to that, you touched upon it already, is meeting legal requirements. Indeed, in the European Union, we have the RED. For example, in the Netherlands, where I'm based, we have the SD Plus subsidy scheme, but also in Japan, rather new, the FIT-FIP premium tariff over there, where certification can be used to meet those legal requirements mentioned by the local regulators. And of course, next to that, also, it still gives you a sort of a reputation, right? And it reduces the risk for companies to put unnecessary claims upon you if you can show that you actually own and operate under a certified license. And as a 4th pillar here, I put down traceability and responsible sourcing. Yeah, this is SPP is also a great deal a chain of custody standard, so showing the actual traceability throughout the supply chain and actually showing the sustainability and legality of the sourcing all the way back to where the feedstock originates from. What is now our role in that process? We are the independent auditing body, meaning that we conduct audits, initially the certification audit, afterward the surveillance audits at our applicants, the companies that need to or want to become SPP certified. And of course, if they can comply to all of the specific SPP requirements, we can issue the certificate. This also, is done impartial in that case. So our credibility is warranted also, through the external accreditation service, and also then for you through our issued certificate. We are making sure, and we also checked on that, to keep our competences up to date. So all of our auditors that we deploy into the field have the necessary knowledge, and especially, of course, for the biomass producers, we in often cases employ local experts that are much more familiar with the local areas and have additional input over there. Right, what are the key requirements for certified sustainable biomass? Right, this is one of the main topics of today. Again, assurance, so that you are really sourcing from legal and sustainable forestry operations, in this case, in the future now also from agricultural residues, where they might originate from, bagasse, rice husk, you name it. Very interesting topic, and happy to see the development of that in the coming years. Of course, biodiversity, or the environment in general is a key topic for biomass, right? So one example here is the avoidance of high conservation value areas, all mentioned in the SPP standard requirements. And what's actually the added benefit of biomass certification schemes in comparison to the well-known FSC and PEFC schemes out there, right? For example, we have the GHG emission accounting that takes place throughout the requirements from SPP, where the data needs to be collected and communicated throughout the supply chain to each individual. And Carsten, I think, also mentioned before, there's a stakeholder involvement taking place throughout SPP certification, namely in this case at the biomass producer area, where they need to consult their local stakeholders that they're involved with about the operations and the ideas to become SPP certified. Right, time's running low. What are actually the steps on getting certified? And put them down into 5 main pillars. The first, of course, is that you actually request a certificate with one of the 4 accredited certification bodies. And during that phase, we will, in discussion with you, determine your actual scope. So SPP, for some, might sound like a rather complex scheme, but indeed there are different setups there. If you source only residues, which may be certified, for example, you can exclude the standard one, which Carsten mentioned in the previous slide. And if you source primary material, certified or not, then you would need to include standard 1 in your scope, for example. Right, after we've achieved that, we draft up an offer for you, of course, mentioning the scope and the price for our service. And if we come to agreement there, then we'll set forth the planning, the audit planning, and link an auditor to your company who will conduct the SPP audit for you. After that has been conducted, of course, we go over to the review phase. So we have always at least a 4i principle. We have the auditor on site during the check of all the requirements from the SPP standards. And then we have a certifier in the office who does an additional review, not, of course, not entire full review again, but a review if everything matches up, if all the requirements are met and making sense to the information that the auditor has provided. And if that can all be granted, if there are no shortcomings, no non-conformities identified, or if any have been identified and now closed, we can go over to the last step, which is certification. So you'll receive your certificate for SPP. It has a validity of 5 years. And after annually, we conduct surveillance assessments, and after 5 years, we will conduct a reassessment and issue a new certificate if still everything is in compliance. So the 3 takeaways that I thought of, and especially this morning, I thought of, what does it actually take to deliver certified sustainable biomass? And the first thing that actually came up to my mind this morning was that it's actually you, the companies, who need SPP certification, because you need to show that you're in compliance with SPP and need to show to the world that you meet the approved requirements from SPP. Right, so certification is not just a tick box, it's a continuous journey, and we're seeing, of course, with the developments in the European Union, a lot of updates there as well, a lot of changes for companies and certificate holders around there, but a continuous journey for the foreseeable future. And indeed, the credibility of certification depends on the robust standards and rigorous impartial verifications. I think SPP is a very active scheme owner, which is very much appreciated, and a good working together. And again, also on our side, the impartial verifications there. And as the last one is indeed the stakeholders across the chain must stay informed. I think those kind of webinars organized by WBA are very helpful in that, and must stay engaged with those kind of requirements also for the near future. That was it from my side. I cannot see any questions, but I guess, Christian, you'll forward them to me.
Yes, I mean, I would like you to answer one question, that is, if a company is kind of new to this and wants to engage, are you informing this company regarding the requirements for being certified, or is this the role of SPP? How does a company that kind of is new to the field and wants to export to European markets understand what it needs to comply with all the requirements?
Very good question, indeed. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a clear separation between us as a certification body and being able to advise clients. As I said, we together with the client determine the scope, what is needed for that client, and then, of course, it's up to the client to prepare adequately prior to the audit in order that they are, can show proof and evidence that they're in compliance with all of the specific requirements set out in the scope. So what we cannot do is advise, you need to do this and you need to do that in order to become certified. But we can only set the scope, and then sometimes indeed companies make use of external consultants who help them in the preparation of such certification audits.
So that would be typical that company consults or ask a consultant to help them through the certification, because it's not an easy process. It has quite elaborate requirement, does it?
Exactly. Yes, especially here again for the biomass producer, they need to comply to the most requirements from the standards, and there we do see regularly the help of external consultants in the preparation for those audits.
Brilliant. There is a practical question from Luc Pelkmans. There are many requirements to fulfill. Does the auditor have sufficient time to check that out?
Well, the auditor needs to indeed verify and check all of those requirements applicable to your scope. So the audit time is set for that accordingly. So as said, a biomass producer who has more standards in their scope, those kind of audits usually also then take longer than a trader or an end user audit.
And give us an idea, I mean, how many days would the auditor be in the place until all the issues are being sorted?
Well, indeed, for traders and end users, that's usually 1 day on site, and then of course some preparation and some reporting from the auditor after that, and then also the review phase. But on site that's 1 day, and for biomass producers that can really vary depending on the sample we take. Right? So we do take a sample of forest management unit suppliers and also visit those locations, and that can of course greatly increase the audit period. So audits from 3 to 5 days are not unusual there.
Right. Now there's a last question I would like to ask you because it's also very relevant. Can you explain the role of FSC and PFC for certification as a precondition to get SBP certified?
Indeed, maybe probably SBP is even better able to answer this question, but I think back in 2015 when SBP was developed or established, a lot of the requirements were based and coming from FSC and PFC certification requirements. So they took up some of those there as a base. And now with version 2 of the standards, SBP has developed their own chain of custody requirements as well, and is a bit more independent from those requirements. And also the initial 100% compliance of FSC and PFC certified biomass is no longer applicable as said for example, primary feedstock, and their additional checks need to be conducted by the biomass producer nowadays.
Thank you so much, Robin. So we now kind of come to the industry that is getting certified, to the producer that is getting certified, to the trader that needs to be certified, and also to the user of the certified product. And we'll start off with the producer. And I'm very glad to welcome Viljo Aros. He is Quality and Environmental Manager at Wormston, a leading European pellet producer that utilizes wood industry and forestry residues for pellet production. Since 2015, Viljo has been responsible for overseeing the company's chain of custody, product quality, and energy management certifications. He also leads process standardization and sustainability reporting efforts. Viljo has been familiar with the SBP since 2015 when Wormston has been successfully certified, so he has a very long record of experience with this certification scheme. Viljo, explain to us what it means for a biomass producer to be certified, to have a valid certificate.
Yeah, hi from my side. I tried to share my screen now. Please let me know if it works.
Yes, if you just go through the presentation mode. That is not yet the presentation mode. Full screen.
Do you have it now?
Now it's fine. Thank you.
Great. So thank you for the invitation to share our experience. I will first introduce Wormston as a group, and then share our experience about being SBP certified and what it takes for a producer. So who we are. Wormston was established in 2003. We operate 5 pellet plants in Baltics, 4 in Estonia and 1 in Latvia. Our annual production capacity is 650,000 tons of pellets and 800,000 cubics of wood chips. And in 2024, our annual revenue was over 1 million euros. And we sell mostly to Europe, and we have delivered to 19 different international ports. We have become a recognized sustainability leader in the bioenergy sector in Baltics and also Europe. So, Christian introduced it already, but why we feel confident to speak here. So we hold several certificates. For chain of custody, we have FSC, PFC, and SBP. For product quality certified according to TIM Plus and N Plus standards. and our energy management system is certified according to ISO 50001. Today's focus is SPV certification, and we have been certified since 2016. The scope of our certificates include pellets and chips, both production and trading. Since early 2025, we have been certified according to the standards version 2. And our scope is the supply-based evaluation for Estonia and Latvia. And this is for both for primary, so forest biomass, and secondary feedstock, wood-industry residues. And we have in the scope the Renewable Energy Directive module and the SD Plus module, which is for the Dutch market. So quite few things on the table, and we are also considering to expand with trees outside forest and maybe in the future agricultural biomass. But at the moment, the key focus is forest biomass and wood industry residues. So coming back to today's theme, what does it take? I think the key message was already said by Robin, that it is not a one-time task. It's not something that you can do and then scrape it off your to-do list. It's a continuous process, and it's a long-term commitment. It takes the learning and training, starting from myself, my team, our suppliers, but also other partners. And we must build our knowledge base to keep up with the changing requirements. Another topic, again, reflecting back to auditing, is, but it's not only external audits, it's also internal audits, supplier audits, forest visits, and of course the external audits, which is then the verification that our processes are aligned with the standard requirements. Different from other chain of custody certification schemes, SPP puts a lot of focus on also data management, collecting data, verifying the data, reporting. It's somewhat less extensive for wood chips, but more for pellets, where you need all the production data and energy use as well. One needs time. One thing is getting certified, but the other thing is to keep all the processes running. It's like routine task for as supply approval, feedstock reception, validation of origin, sales documentation, as Carsten mentioned, the data transaction system. So these processes must be maintained. It takes money. The audits cost. There are tonnage fees on the system. There are salaries. It makes sense to build IT systems, to manage the data, and then to maintain the systems. So it's a quite comprehensive framework. If you take the long run, there's always places to improve. And it takes a lot of motivation. It's one must think through why you do it, and keep this in mind, because as mentioned, it's not a one-time task that you can do and it's completed and then it's off the table. Considering the environment, then I think we are talking about adapting and the constant changes. So it is truly a continuous process. And this leads to our next question, then why to do it? It is a license to operate. And it's not only on the end user side, but also on the sourcing side. Why it's a good use to utilize the biomass the way we do it. So keep in mind the sustainability, and it's only renewable energy if it's source sustainable. It gives access to markets, especially the EU, but also others. UK is outside, Japan is included. So it is a tool to access new markets. It gives access to information. It's not only through the auditors, but also the certification scheme, so SPV Secretariat. It is a risk management tool, how to keep up with the legislation, how to be sure that you are in compliance with the market requirements. And if you want to expand, then you already know that if it's a recognized scheme, then this is a risk mitigation tool. And maybe finally, it is a way to improve the operations itself. It's a tested framework, how to do things and how to improve on things. So we don't look at the audits if there are some findings that this is bad. I always consider this is good. We found, if there is anything, then we found something where we can improve. Yeah, and then it's the question of how to get it done. So I already mentioned, I think it's very critical to understand why to do it. There's always the level that we go for the legal compliance. This is sufficient for the local market, but if you want to export, it might not be sufficient. You can also always do more than the standard requires, but then you need to justify what is a reasonable or acceptable level for yourself. So understand why you undertake the process and what are the goals. In the long run, I think dedicated people are needed inside the organization. Consultants are needed to get it running, maybe, but in the longer run, you need people within the organization who understand the details and adjust the procedures. Maybe digitalization and automatization is not necessary in the first year, but it's definitely something to keep in mind once you start to develop the processes and the data management. The data requirements will increase, not decrease, meaning that one should consider how to get the data digital and how to automate reporting and data collection. Build networks, not only with suppliers, but auditors, regulators, industry associations. There is a lot of going on. It's difficult to keep track of everything by oneself, and the networks are important. And I think a very important thing is as well being proactive to stay ahead of the changes. It doesn't mean that you have to implement everything before it's official or transposed into the law, but it means that keep an eye on the draft documents and regulators changes, participate in the discussions because you can affect the outcomes a little. And this is also a way how to gather and collect ideas that what do I have to do once the new regulations or new standards are implemented. So be prepared and anticipate the changes. And when I thought about the key takeaways or maybe lessons learned, then I would point out that as strange as it sounds, being SBP certified means less audits. I remember the time before the certificate, and then client audits were really common. And it could happen that within 1 year, in a period of 3 months, we had several client audits. One client sent their auditors, they verified the procedures, then another client sent their auditors, verified the procedures. And being SBP certified and having a framework that is recognized by the big share of end users helps to be more effective also internally. Then another thing I would like to point out about SBP, and as Carsten mentioned, is the sourcing standard. That means that most of our suppliers are not SBP certified. We are the certified producer. We need to know what's happening in our supply base. We need to know who are our suppliers and how they source the feedstock. But the suppliers themselves don't need to be SBP certified. And also a benefit from SBP, although less now, but there is still the partial recognition of other schemes of FSC and PFC, for instance. This is especially valid for residues, but there is also benchmarking done for forest management standardization. So partial recognition is still there. And with this, I would finish my presentation. Who wants to learn more about the story, you can scan the QR code. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Viljo. That was really interesting. And I found it quite remarkable that you feel that certification is not just a tedious procedure you have to go through because some people seem to need it or want it, but it is also something that your company is really benefiting from. And I think that's an important aspect that shouldn't be forgotten. That, I mean, we have seen the same thing with the quality certification, the EN Plus, for example. The companies are benefiting from being certified because they are improving their processes simply, and they know what is going on in their company in a much more profound and better way if they kind of follow it up as required by the certification. But I mean, still, getting SBP certified is not a small thing. You said it requires time. Can you give an estimation of how many persons are basically employed to handle the certification in your company? And is there a minimum production volume you believe is necessary to justify that effort?
In our team, the 5 factories in the Baltics that we run, I would say we have 2 dedicated persons, myself and a colleague of mine. And in Latvia, I'm not present. I work in Estonia myself. We have a part-time consultant who helps with the forest audits and supply audits. But I would say it's maybe 2 full-time persons. But the more you integrate it, the more vague become the borders. I mean, you need to know the suppliers for also other reasons, and we check the volume of how much each supplier is delivering. And when we do the data collection for GHG calculations, then we also need the data for energy data to improve our factories, to get the factories more efficient. So it's difficult to say that which things we do only because of SBP, because it has become a part of how we operate. Mm-hmm. And also like supplier approval, it's integrated into our sourcing policy. So there are many more people who are involved of keeping the SBP system running in our company. But I would say that there are 2 people whose main task it is, and the others are doing like just a subtask, or let's say maybe there are slightly modified procedures that we need to do in this way just to be sure that we comply with the standards. But I wouldn't say that everything from the standards is additional work. You just have to incorporate it into your existing procedures. And coming back to the second part of the question, it's a bit difficult to answer what's the reasonable size. For wood chips, you have to consider the audit costs, but the smaller you are, the easier it is to manage the data. So in the end, I would think the main criteria is who are your customers and what are the markets that you want to deliver to. If you want to enter a market or to sell to an end customer that requires the certification, then I would say it's an easy calculation. You get the quote from the auditor, you estimate the volumes, and other things you just have to incorporate into your procedures.
Right. Last question before we move to the next speaker was on, there are a couple more just coming in, just a second. How important is digitalization? Can you do without it if the company is still kind of not that advanced in this respect? How important is it, and can things be done without that?
It can. As I mentioned as well, you can definitely start without. The requirement is that you must have the data and it must be verifiable. But if it's like records on paper, so nothing says that it must be digital. Of course, the sales documents, you have to enter the DTS transactions. There are some things you cannot do without a computer or access to the internet. But it's more labor, you could call it, to do everything manually, but it's definitely doable.
Right. And final question, and then we have to move over to the next speakers. Do your suppliers get audited or not? I mean, how is it secured that your supplier are actually if you're sourcing, for example, forestry residues, how is it ensured that their forestry operations are sustainable?
As I mentioned, there is partial recognition for existing, let's say, more common forest management schemes for FSC and PFC. So you can consider it as part of your risk mitigation measure. You cannot rely only on it, but you can build your risk mitigation on that. We do also supply audits and forest visits, but these are sample-based. And like Robin mentioned, also during external audits, the auditors select the sample of forest management units and suppliers they want to visit during the audit. But to mitigate the risk, there is running communication with the suppliers. And over the years, you build up the knowledge that you know who you work with. And you have to have the trust. You do the audits, but you also must trust. We have some suppliers who have said that, sorry, we see we cannot work together. There's so many risks that we feel are not mitigated. And there are suppliers that are not certified, but do monthly reporting basically, or share the sourcing data with us, which we can easily verify. So there are audits, and they have to be sample-based for suppliers as well.
Thank you. That was really helpful and informative, Vios, and we will also have the possibility to ask further questions at the end of this journey. The next speaker is Christian Rabeck, and he is going to explain to us what certification, what SBP certification means for a trader. Christian is working as head of sustainability at CM Biomass Partners, a Danish trading company. I guess probably the largest biomass trader for the time being. Christian is responsible for leading and coordinating CM Biomass certification and sustainability certification activities related to wood pellets and other biomass fuels. Christian, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you for having me. Let me just find my presentation here and share my screen. So, can you confirm that you are seeing my presentation?
We see the screen, but not in presentation mode yet.
Oh, sorry.
Now it's present. No, this is the view of this is the right view. Perfect.
All right. There seems to be a little lag. I hope we are at the right slide now. Thank you for your patience. So, thank you again for inviting me for this session. I'm happy to contribute what I can. I am head of sustainability at CM Biomass. We are a globally active biomass trader and also a biomass producer. We have our biomass production in the United States, where we are active, I think, with 9 plants, currently 8 plants producing wood pellets, 4 of them fully owned by us and 4 in joint ventures, and 1 plant that produces peanut hull pellets. Our production capacity, our own production capacity in the United States is about 1 million tons per year, and about we trade about 3.6 million tons, maybe a little bit less. These numbers are now almost 1 year old. We are about 250 employees. I think something like 30, maybe 35 in Denmark, and of course our production and administration staff in the United States make up most of the remaining balance. We have been SBP certified also, like Wormeston, since 2016. And I have been on board with the company for a little bit more than 2.5 years now. We are not only SBP certified, but when I last took stock, SBP certification was used for about 85% of the wood pellet trades we made. We also maintain FSC and PEFC certifications for wood products. We don't really trade wood chips at the moment, maybe a little bit internally in Sweden. And these programs now, I think in standalone certification, where it's not a double certification with SBP, they are probably at just 2 to 3% each. We also ISCC certified, for which we use for agricultural, basically agro-food industry residues, mainly shells, not shells. And we are SURE certified. A German system. It doesn't make up so much of our volume yet. We are Green Gold label certified, and we are EN Plus certified for wood pellet quality. So out of this, about 85% of our wood pellet is SBP certified, and of the other schemes, GGL is the largest. About 5% of our volume is certified. Total certification percentage for a good part of last year was around 92%. So why is the SBP certification system so important for CM Biomass? We have already talked about wood pellet certification being a license to operate, a license to trade. And it is a very, the SBP system is a very widely recognized scheme, both by policymakers and by industrial end users in the UK, in the EU, and now also well recognized in Japan. And that is just crucial for our business, where, at least by volume, the industrial markets are so important. I would like to mention in this case that, as I think Viljo also touched upon, an SBP certification is not a guarantee that the product is accepted in a certain market or by a certain customer. We do see some differences in the transpositions of the EU RED legislation in different countries, and where we see that in the Dutch market, wood pellets, industrial wood pellets, must be made from residues, and that's the key topic there. Forest, even SBP certified primary biomass, so biomass wood pellets made from wood directly from the forest, is not acceptable. And in Denmark, the SBP system is very, very important, because we also, in our transposition, have sustainability criteria for wood industry residues. And that is something that the SBP system offers. It is, of course, also very, very important to us that the framework, the standards for collecting and reporting greenhouse gas data is established and was established right from the start in the SBP system. We have, as you can imagine, with a lot of production and sourcing in the United States, we have long transport routes, and it is not, we cannot automatically assume that the standard values that are given in the EU RED framework are sufficient for our end users to meet their greenhouse gas reduction obligations. So the SBP system, like several of the other systems we are certified, is recognized by the European Commission as a voluntary scheme for woody biomass sustainability, and that is, of course, super important. We also reflect that the risk-based approach of the SBP system has been very, very important to the success of the SPP system. The fact that there is a risk assessment done for the sourcing area, for the catchment area, source supply base area where the feedstock originates, and then control measures are put in place to control or to mitigate the risks identified. That is a very different approach than the old forest area-based or forest management-based certification schemes like FSC and PFC, and that has enabled the success of the SPP system in our view. We also find that the DTS system is very, very important. We see it as highly reliable. So this the DTS system, again, a reminder that it is an online platform where we move the volumes from the suppliers. The supplier documents during his audit how many that his production follows procedures, and volumes are created in or entered into the DTS system against following internal procedures. The fact that we can then rely on the data and we can easily transfer that to our customers, and with that also transfer information that enables the greenhouse gas accounting by our customers, that is crucial. We have been operating in the DTS system since it was originated, and we have I forget the exact number, maybe 18,000 transactions or something like that in the DTS system by now. We also really appreciate with the with the SPP system that it has proven much more agile to the ever-changing regulatory framework for biomass. For example, the RED III implementation that we are seeing now, the old, respectfully, the old certification systems, forest management certification systems, FSC and PFC, they have been much slower in adapting to the requirements of the regulatory framework that biomass trade and usage happens under. So these topics mean that the SPP system is just very, very important for us, and we don't really foresee that any of the other systems would significantly challenge the position of SPP. So we appreciate the SPP system a lot, and we also take upon us to engage with SPP. We participate in the development of the EUDR module. So again, we contribute time, expertise. We work in the sandbox to support that this system can be developed. And also, I also contribute time and opinions in the SPP Standard Committee, which is one of three organs within SPP that helps set the direction and the standards. So that is our way of paying a little bit back, save for, of course, the royalty charges, which is a bit more monetary, that we, of course, also contribute. So all in all, the SPP system is super important for us because it is a pragmatic and reliable way for our end users to show that they are in compliance with regulatory requirements. So that is the brief version of our benefits from the SPP system. I don't know if that causes any questions. I'm happy to take them now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christian. That was really interesting to get an insight into the role of certification for CM biomass. Now, a producer might ask, why do I need to have a certified trader at all? Why does the trade need to be certified? If I produce certified product that is sustainable, what is your quick answer to such a person who is not Not sure he needs a certified trader.
Well, let's say I think more question for my trader colleagues, but of course we see a market with a product that was, previously quite a simple commodity. If we go back, I sometimes joke that maybe 15 years ago there was only two dimensions to wood pellets, 6 millimeter and 8 millimeter. Now today it is so important that we carry forward all of this information to our end users. What type of feedstock was used? Some feedstocks are acceptable to some markets or end users and others not. How much energy was consumed in the production of different, electricity, diesel, propane, so on and so forth. And I think that is, it's also a part of it's an opportunity for us to find the suppliers that match with the end user requirements. Again, some suppliers excel in some areas. Some can produce cheap wood pellets. Some are more specialized. Some organizations produce wood pellets only from wood industry residues, and that might meet some market requirements. And I think that is, the role of the biomass trader. Of course, we do this within the regulatory framework of SPP, of the other systems that we work with as well.
Thank you. That was very, very clear, and that is, I think, sometimes probably underestimated. If you come to a new market, we say, "Oh, I have the product. Who wants to have it?" and let's look for a ship. But it isn't as simple as that, and traders play a really important role in organizing the market and matching supply and demand, which is also dynamic and changing all the time. Some power plants shut down for maintenance, and there is a lot of product coming along that needs to be shipped to another place, etc., etc. All of that really needs the trading company in between, and in order to kind of keep the data flow closed in a way. That's why you need to be certified. There was a specific question whether all end users in Japan require SPP. Can you answer that?
No, I can't answer that of I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. Will probably depend on whether they are operating under the feed-in tariff regime, because as far as I understand, the feed-in tariff regime requires now sustainability certification. Anyways, so this was the position of the trader, and the final position is, of course, the position and the situation of the user. And I'm very glad to introduce Esther Bustillo Vázquez to you. Esther is a biomass sustainability expert at ENGIE Laborelec, an entity of ENGIE Research and Innovation, and the leading center of expertise and research in energy. She joined the biomass and green fuels team of Laborelec in 2021 to support the biomass trading and producing entities for certification of their biomass activities, closely following the evolving legislative framework on sustainable biomass. So, Esther, you are helping the ENGIE companies that are using biomass to produce electricity to get their act together. How are you doing that, and what is the role of certification in that context?
Thanks for the introduction, Christian. I will share my screen. Might take a few minutes, like for the others. Okay. And like this. Do you see it? Do you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for the introduction. It was yeah, very well explained. So I'm Esther Bustillo, working at for the ENGIE Group, an entity of the ENGIE Group, ENGIE Laborelec, based in Belgium. I'm a biomass sustainability expert, and today I'm going to talk to you about the point of view of the end user in this whole certification path. So just a quick word about what we do here in my team at ENGIE Laborelec. a bit like, as Christian said, but also as Robin from Control Union mentioned, often there is a need for consultant, basically certification consultant, to help and guide the new users in their certification pathways, because they have many questions, they have many tools that they need to implement, they have procedures to put in place, etc., etc. And as a third-party verificators, the auditors often they cannot provide the advice and verify afterwards. So it's there is a need for in the market for people like me and my colleagues to support the entities in their certification pathways. So we are although we work in a very big company of almost 90,000 employees around the world, I'm in a very small team, and we are a team of three colleagues involved in the regulatory activities, and we are based in Belgium, close to Brussels. We have more than 20 years experience in, I'll put my pointer, sorry. We have more than 20 years experience following the evolution of the sustainability criteria for bioenergy, first in Belgium, then its evolution in the European framework. So for those of you listening based in Europe, all those acronyms might seem familiar: RED 2, RED 3, EUTR, EUDR, EU ETS, all of those legislative framework that we have to work with when we handle biomass. We are also now broadening our scope into more diverse regulatory frameworks, such as the carbon market with the CRCF, or also more different types of fuels like green fuel, green hydrogen, etc., within the European market. We have been quite active in SBP also, as the other speakers today, as standard committee members since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And we are also involved in at different levels in other certification schemes, namely ICC EU, Certify, FSC, PFC, etc. So what exactly do we do as in our biomass regulatory activities and support? So first of all, of course, following the existing and the future legislative framework, and helping our colleagues and our clients to understand what it is about. Building many tools to help them supporting their journey, the compliance journey. So it can be for project developers that are looking for developing a biomass project, but they don't know how far they can supply their biomass from, in order to make sure that they will be sustainable and compliant in the end, when the project is indeed operating. Or it can also be for entities that are already in operation, but that are seeking certification. And so for them, we also accompany them in their certification pathways. And it can be for many clients internal to NG or external to the group. And for various types of profiles, so biomass producers, traders, and end users. So our tools are go from greenhouse gas calculations to audit readiness tools and handbooks, for example. So today I'm going to talk to you about the point of view of an end user. So one of our clients being the CPCU. So the CPCU, for the French speaking in the call, is the Compagnie Parisienne de Chauffage Urbain. In other terms, it's the CHP, the biggest district heating network in France, based in the city of Paris. It has been in operation since 1927, and just for to give you a rough idea of its size. So in 2024, it had a total of more or less 3 gigawatt install capacity, producing around 7.5 million tons of steam annually. And this was produced in 8 different sites and distributed then to the inhabitants throughout the distribution networks of a bit more than 500 kilometers to 1 million inhabitants. So quite a vast network. So since 2023, we have been supporting the CPCU in their certification journey. We have been doing this for 2 different certification schemes, that is RED. So when we say RED, is really the European framework for renewable energy that sets the marks for that sets the minimum criteria for sustainability requirements. So namely, those schemes are SBP and IECC EU. And the reason why we have two schemes is that we have different types of biomass that we use. So I saw a question in the chat earlier that was about whether or not there was agri-biomass, for example, in SBP. So they are, as Carsten said, developing this, but right now only woody biomass. So we have SBP for the woody biomass part of the biomass that they're using. And they are also certified ISCC EU for the non-woody part, and also the biofuels that they use in other installations. So SVP remains still the majority of the biomass volumes that CPCU consumes in terms of certified products. And what do we do exactly in my team? So we support this client CPCU in the traceability and the chain of custody requirements. So to make sure that everything is in order, paperwork-wise, etc. To help them prepare for everything related to the greenhouse gas calculations. So I will explain, but there is some greenhouse gas calculations that need to be done, especially at the level of the end user, in order to prove that your biomass does not emit much more than fossil fuel. And we have a percentage of savings compared to fossil fuels to prove. And so we have to have efficient and audited calculators. And so we have made different calculators for the different schemes, and they have all successfully passed these audits. We have also helped them prepare all the audit requirements, and so all the procedures in their handbook. And we have also been helping them conducting the internal audit, because it's always better when it's not yourself auditing yourself, but another external colleague or a company that can audit you. And the trainings also, we are helping them for these parts. Okay, so now talking really about why actually the certification is crucial for their combustion activities. So first of all, and Christian mentioned that in the very beginning of this webinar, RED certification is an obligation, and in order to claim the biomass as renewable, you have to ensure that the biomass is RED compliant, and so the biomass is sustainable. When we say RED compliant, we mean that it has to respect two big pillars. So the first is the sustainability criteria. So on harvesting, and also requirements on the carbon in the soil, and also requirements on the greenhouse gas emission savings that the entire supply chain of your biomass needs to show. So some savings that it needs to show compared to an equivalent supply chain of a fossil fuel. So on the one hand, it is an obligation to be able to claim it as renewable, and this advantage of claiming it as renewable is more used at the level of the member states. The member state would like to have more renewable claims, so it's an incentive also for end users to comply with the sustainability requirements. And on the other hand, there is a direct also advantage for companies and users that are firing biomass to be sustainable and to be RED compliant, is that when they use RED compliant biomass, they can be zero rated in the ETS. What does it mean? It means that when you combust this biomass, the emissions directly emitted from the combustion of those biomass, the CO2 emissions, will not have to surrender CO2 allowances in the ETS cap and trade system in Europe. So I will not go into details as to why, but I've put the justification here in the slides if you're interested as to what is this logic behind the zero rating of the biomass. And all of these basically have been accelerating the decarbonization of the combustion assets, and also more broadly to the fossil fuel users, the big industries in Europe. So going back to CPCU, since the introduction of the biomass in their combustion in 2016, CPCU reduced its direct emission by 23%, which is quite big from 2023 compared to 2016. And as from the summer of 2024, so a year ago, they have now formally completely stopped burning coal. And so their former coal boilers are now fully operating on 100% SBP certified biomass, which is, again, another good news, helping the decarbonization process of CPCU and the city of Paris in general. So now why, so I've mentioned why it's important to be certified, but why we believe that SBP is a strong actor in the certification. So for us, as we see it, and as I believe the clients also, the CPCU sees it, being SBP certified offers additional advantages compared to other schemes on the market. First of all, it goes beyond regulatory compliances. So the fact that it existed before the REDs started developing their sustainability criteria and continue to co-evolve parallel to the RED, but then also adapted to the RED, makes it that it has very strong sustainability criteria, sometimes stronger than the ones that are mentioned in the RED. And for clients such as CPCU, which is located at the heart of one of the biggest cities in Europe, it is really important to be able to ensure your stakeholders that you have strong sustainability requirements and yeah, that you follow strong sustainability requirements within your operation. So the stakeholders, it's typically the authorities of the city of Paris, but also the civil society and the inhabitants around the different production heating sites. So on the one hand, for us, it's really good. So for the image and also the reassurance of the stakeholders. On the other hand, and then I'm jumping back on what Christian said also. That's one of the big advantages that SBP offers is that it gives full transparency on the communication of data. So I now I'm referring to the standard 5 and 6 for the ones who are more familiar of the SBP scheme. So basically, what does it mean? It means that as an end user, when we buy biomass, we will receive the entire details of the energy consumption data from the biomass producers, but also of the different transports that the biomass has made since it left the biomass producer site. So I'm talking about the exact consumption of electricity, what trees that what biomass that they supplied from where, what the distance, what distance of transport are we talking about? What is the amount of heat needed to dry this biomass, etc., etc. So we get all these details, and this allows us as an end user to make the detailed greenhouse gas emission calculations that we require. And so, so as I mentioned, this is a requirement from the REDs. It is a requirement to prove that indeed you are using sustainable biomass that satisfies good harvesting and sustainable harvesting, but that also didn't emit too much in the entire supply chain, production chain, transport chain, etc., of this biomass. Christian also mentioned that we could use also default values, standard values from the Commission. So indeed, the Commission offers the opportunity to take standard values that they give in their directive, in the legal text, but often these values are much too conservative, and for certain supply chain that just is supplying from a bit too far away, we don't reach this the necessary threshold when we use the standard value, because not because the supply chain is not sustainable, but because the standard values are based on really strong assumptions from the Commissions and really conservative assumptions. And so the fact that using SBP really allows us to go into the detail and to actually have a full visibility on the energy consumption of the supply chain and to make accurate calculations and to actually prove that we were really way above the threshold that was required. So here, and I will finish on this, a quick example that we made, so that I made for our client at CPCU. Here is an example, a real example of a supply chain of pellets that was supplied to CPCU. The total emission of this particular batch was of 7 grams per megajoule. And this, when you translate this into greenhouse gas emission savings, you are reaching way above the criteria, so 89.4% compared to the 80%. We are reaching the required savings, so it's all good when you use the accurate values. But then as I said, when you use the standard values of the Commission, because they made very strong assumptions and they are not using the most recent data available, we are not reaching the required savings that we have to prove. So really, it is, for me, really crucial when we supply already just for from the country next door and just not directly from your own country. As soon as it has a bit more transport distances, it is crucial to have all the data in hand to make your own calculation. So this is a bit an overview of how it can really benefit for the end users. Just a quick promo from my side. We don't only do the regulatory services in my team, we also do a lot of other services for the biomass industry worldwide. So if you're interested in knowing a bit what we do in my team, don't hesitate. You have the QR code here, a link on the slide that will be forwarded as well, and our email addresses. So don't hesitate to contact us. And on that word, I would like to thank WBA and SBP for having me, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Esther. That was really, really interesting. And I must say, I'm very astonished at how high the greenhouse gas savings are. 89%. I suppose that is compared to coal that has been used before. Is that so?
Yeah, it's compared to a standard value given by the Commission, which is a mix of any any fossil fuel that a traditional supply chain of fossil fuel. I don't have the exact info of what type of fossil fuel they were using. I guess a mix of coal and maybe a heavy oil. I don't exactly know what was in their initial assumption, but we have a given value that we have to use to compare and to make the savings calculations, basically.
89% is a fantastic value. I mean, reducing CO2 emissions by 89% is just amazing. But would that also include pellets being shipped from America to France?
So maybe then not 89, maybe more like 81%. But for sure, we are. So here it's a smaller distance. I'm not gonna give the detail of the transaction, okay, but it's Europe to Europe. But we have been, so I'm also supporting the traders at NG, probably competitors of Christian here from CM Biomass. And we have also, they are supplying from all around the world to Europe as well. And it works, it reaches the savings. So of course, then it's a case by case study, and when it's really close to the limit, then we really have to be cautious and make the calculation before signing any deals to make sure that it will reach the appropriate savings at the end of the supply chain. But it depends on the type of boat that you use. If you ship it with a very big boat, the amount of emissions per ton of biomass transported is actually much smaller. Much lower than emissions just by 100 kilometers or 200. I don't have the number in mind, but by diesel trucks, simply because it emits much less per unit of biomass transported. So for big volumes, it makes sense to ship from far away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Esther. That was really enlightening. We don't have a lot of additional questions. There was one question that was asking that 100% of the coal boilers are SBP certified, and I think the person didn't fully understand what that meant. I guess you were talking about the coal boilers that have been converted to using pellets, correct?
So I was talking about the current, the previously firing coal boilers of the clients itself. So they had a few boilers that were still firing coal to produce the heat for the city of Paris, and they have made the commitment, and they have held their commitment to stop fully the coal and to get rid of the coal. And now these boilers are now operating on 100% on biomass. So I'm not saying all the boilers of CPC, I'm just saying the ones that were previously firing coal, they are now fully on biomass, and it appears to be 100%. It is 100% SBP certified because it's only wood chip biomass, wood pellets biomass certified SBP.
Thank you so much. There are not any more questions, but maybe some of our speakers want to make a last comment. So please feel free to make some final comments if you like. Christian.
Yes, I would also just confirm Esther's comment. I think it is a very common concern or question. Is it really, from a carbon dioxide perspective, does it really make sense to ship wood pellets over long distances? Of course, I'm speaking out of the perspective of a wood pellet trader that trades pellets globally, including lots of pellets from North America to Europe. And we can just say that if even using the standard emission factors for transport, a common, I think Esther's example from before was around 7, maybe 7.5 grams of CO2 per megajoule of wood pellets when they arrive in Europe with the end user. And we can say that for a common size, it's 30,000 tons, a handy size vessel that contributes between 4 and 5 grams on a journey to Europe. So that would, in this instance, it would make up, we will probably hit 8 to 9, maybe 10 grams of CO2, which against a fossil fuel comparator of 80 grams is still a very good saving. 84, 82, 84, 85 is very common. And the next development on this I see, which we are already working on, is rather than using emission factors for this long journey and this heavy impact, is going to direct data from the vessels. We find that the vessel data, in the same way as these other factors are a little bit outdated, things have improved, that going to actual data, it's difficult to manage it. There's a whole element to that, and it has to be done in a reliable way. But it will actually show that the vessel journey has an even smaller impact than we currently assess, 30, 40% or more, even before we start using biofuel on the ships. So to reassure people, there's other elements, and sometimes the analysis of the makeup of a wood pellet's carbon footprint really opens some eyes. So other elements that you would initially think are actually more important.
Thank you very much, Christian, for adding that. Carsten, would you also like to?
Absolutely.
Some final observations.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank my fellow speakers. Very interesting always to hear, let's say, your individual setups, because in most of the cases when we engage with you, we talk about our view of SPP and what we work on and do these kind of things. So it's kind of really good to draw the line between, the scheme and the certification body and the users and your path. But I think an important piece of information for the audience that is listening in is, yes, we are of course aware that we have set up this this webinar in a way that we have quite a large biomass producer, a very large biomass trader, and also quite a large end user here. But that shouldn't distort that SPP is also used by small-scale producers and small-scale end users, and also one-person traders and so on. So within those, 362 certificate holders that we have, and we see in the past years more and more smaller operations being SPP certified. Initially, it was just the large ones and just a small amount of biomass end users. I think for a couple of years we had 12 end users. Now we are up 60 plus and so on. And that is driven by, on one hand, the Renewable Energy Directive, on the other hand, also by the Japanese setups and so on. And we see more and more a move from pellets to adding more chips. So in the beginning of SPP's existence, we had lots and lots of wood pellets, white wood pellets go into the system. And I think in January this year was the first month where we saw the monthly volume of wood chips exceed the monthly volume of pellets going through the system. And as mentioned, we have a lot of smaller scale wood chip boilers, companies that run these that have joined the SPP system, and that triggers demand for SBP certified wood chips as well, and we see a bit of more diversification to smaller scale operations, smaller supply chains, more local supply chains and things like that. So it's not only about the intercontinental trade and exchange of a commodity that is produced far away and then shipped to Europe or to other parts of the world. So everything is in a flow. But what we also see is that we see, let's say, new kinds of end users. So the steel industry is looking for substitutes for coke for their metallurgical use, and they're looking at biomass. High carbonated biomass, the lime industry, looking to defossilize, the cement industry, the asphalt industry, and so on. And we are being approached also by the food sector, by companies like Unilever or Nestle, that have hundreds of production facilities across the world, and that they need heat, they need steam. There are companies, I wasn't aware, I have to admit, in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka that only iron textiles day to day, and they need a lot of steam to do that. And you can't produce that by electricity. It's not efficient. And therefore you need some kind of a combustion. And moving away from the fossil age, moving to something new, but still needing to use combustion, I think opens a path as long as sustainability requirements are complied with. I think going forward, this is an important thing, and a lot of responsibility is also on our shoulders as a scheme, or as one of the leading schemes, to do a good job to offer a robust scheme and to make it accessible to most.
Thank you so much. Any final comment from other speakers? That is not the case, then thank you so much. It was really informative. We got a lot of very positive feedback in the chat. Thanks for all of you that have been presenting, and thanks to all the listeners, and hope to see you again in one of our next webinars. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you
all.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.